Thank you for joining us for Family Forums, a program on health and wellness from the Sioux Falls School District in partnership with Avera. Today we're going to be talking about teen health, what's really going on with adolescents today, how the adults in their lives can help better support them. From mental health and stress to sleep, screen time, and preventative care, teens are navigating a lot during these formative years. Joining us are three experts in this area, Dr. Sam Schimmelpfennig, or as we like to call him, Dr. Sam, a pediatrician and sports medicine expert at Avera, Molly Satter, Senior Coordinator of Health Services for the school district, and Tobin Bakendal, Success Coordinator at Jefferson High School. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So this is a really big topic. It was a little intimidating thinking of questions because there's so much that happens during those years. But why don't we just go around and share what are some of the biggest issues facing teens today, and we'll probably dive deeper into those. Dr. Sam?
Sure. So I would say probably number one is going to be mental health, and anxiety and depression are probably at the top of that list within that topic. And then the number two, which will often relate to mental health, is going to be substance use, and that's going to start with fairly common innocuous things like caffeine, all the way up to more of the same drug kind of problems we worry about in the population in general, opioids, fentanyl, all that kind of stuff.
I would echo that, and just the stresses that teens often face. There's a lot coming at them. Their bodies are changing. There's mental health things going on. There are the demands of school and activities, and all of those things kind of come together to create concerns and pressures, and can affect health.
Yeah, I'd agree with the other two. One area that I also see is just navigating interpersonal relationships in a healthy manner. And with that comes kind of the cell phone use, and then the anxiety and depression are also something that we see quite often in our high school students.
So I have a teenager at home, and I'll tell you, sometimes what I see at home and what they're showing at school might be different. A lot of times they're more comfortable at home sometimes, and being able to show that to their peers. So Molly, what are we seeing when kids are stressed out and dealing with those academic pressures? What are some of those things that they might see at school and at home?
So sometimes they're really good about kind of holding it together during the school day, and they get home and they're comfortable, and you might see irritability, and you kind of get the brunt of all of that at home. On the flip side, at school, if students are feeling pressure and stressed, we can see physical manifestations. Kids coming down for frequent headaches and stomach aches and various other ailments that kind of, when we get to the root of it, it maybe is a little bit more stress or mental health related versus an actual physical ailment. So we're always kind of trying to play detective to see what's going on at the root of this. So yeah, it can kind of affect both differently.
Tobin, anything to add? You're seeing them probably at that counselor level, and they're maybe a little bit more vulnerable with your team.
Yeah, I get a lot of information in session behind closed doors. And one of the areas that we're constantly looking at is just our students' coping strategies, and how are they dealing with the pressure of life, of school. I try to remind our students that you are more than just a grade. You have so many other attributes that contribute to your life, and to just be focused on grades. Yes, we want you to do well, but at what cost? So really looking at what coping strategies our students have by the time they get to high school, because that's where I'm at right now.
As we look at mental health in teens, it's hard to not talk about social media and screen time and some of those things. So Dr. Sam, what are some best practices for parents guiding kids with this right now?
I usually recommend cell phones about age 35 or 40, somewhere in there.
I don't think I'm responsible enough yet, so.
Never as well received. To me, and it's really all about limitation, and trying to keep boundaries over how much time are they actually spending on social media, and where are they going when they're on social media. And I think that's easier in the younger years, where parents can be a little bit more of the policeman, and I don't want you going to these sites and policing that. And it gets much harder when they have more autonomy, when they're older. You as a parent, you run the fine line between trying to protect them but not being overly burdensome, where that just creates more stress and conflict. And so It's a hard question to answer, but in general, I always recommend trying to limit it as much as you can and making sure that cell phone use or social media is not a substitute for like normal human interactions. Like, I'm not going to go out and exercise, I'm going to hang out on my phone all day long.
And
I'm not going to go to sleep at night, I'm just going to hang out on my phone, because all that just snowballs into more problems during the day.
And I really see that with teen boys too, with gaming as well, where it's some social interaction, but like, how can you help to monitor that and have those conversations as teenagers start to get older, and also like what they're consuming from some of that gaming?
Yeah, it's not easily done, and my kids are not quite old into the teenage years, so I can't quite say off personal experience quite yet, but they're getting old too fast. But yeah, to me, I think if you can have channels of open communication, and just trying to be gentle with boundaries, because they are learning to be adults, and they need to sort of make their own decisions, and sometimes they need to fall a little bit because we learn a little bit from that, but trying to have guardrails in place to maybe keep that fall from hurting too much.
So the schools have actually made some adjustments this year. So how can schools and families better align too with that screen time, and how does that help to impact, students even when they go home? Tobin, do you want to take that?
One of the things that I think about is oftentimes you'll hear that kids have changed, and I think we really need to look at, kids are still developmentally the same kids as they were 30 years ago. What has changed is the environment and what they have access to. And they still need parental guidance and adults in their life to provide boundaries and to provide support when they do fall. And that goes for cell phone use and gaming also. We have the research, volumes of research, showing that both gaming and social media and cell phones are addictive. And when we're working with parents who don't necessarily see it as an addiction and it's just what they do, that's where we kind of run into issues where they're not functioning at the level that they should be. So really looking at parents and helping provide boundaries and supports, and being on top of the world that they're open to on a cell phone is really what I see currently.
And what about that mentoring piece, Molly, too? Because like, we talk about boundaries, but those are hard if your kids aren't seeing you practicing those too at home.
I was just thinking that, doing a little self-reflection as a parent of teens myself, having to stop myself and say, okay, am I on my phone at the dinner table? Maybe there's rules in the house about where it's appropriate, and making sure we're shutting off the phone, in plenty of time, so that we're getting to bed and not staring, at our phone for hours and hours at night. Just so those things that maybe as adults that we might be struggling with, reflecting on those and then helping to model that for our children. It is definitely a challenge for everyone.
I think that screen time, social media at night is such a good point, though. We've really had to do that at our house, where phones need to go on a different floor than bedrooms are, because otherwise the temptation's just too great to be watching what other people are doing, and then your mind starts racing, things like that. So the teen years sometimes too, Dr. Sam, are when we're seeing kids the least, unless they're in athletics and they need that ever important sign off for their physical and things like that. But there's a lot that happens during those years. So talk to us about, like, as a physician, when they're coming in to see you, what are some of the things you're talking to teens about? And then why is it important for parents to still make sure kids get that annual visit?
Largely we talk about this kind of stuff. What is relevant for teens. It will vary a little bit probably on their age. As they're getting older in high school, the conversation largely revolves around, what are your future plans? What is next? And, inevitably we get to points of pressure. I want to do this, my parents want to do that, or, feelings of failure because they want to do something different than what maybe other people think or their friends want them to do. So it's a lot of the same sort of stresses and pressures. It just looks differently at different ages of life. So a lot of it is, I would say, bread and butter adolescent topics of, driving safety and talking about drugs and how to say no and healthy lifestyle decisions and nutrition and exercise. But it's unusual that I have a teenager come in without some sort of an agenda. So I might have my agenda of like talking points, but sometimes we never get to it because they have lots of questions, or by asking a few questions, you sense very quickly that some maybe more is going on, and you end up just talking about anxiety and stress and how they're handling stress of life. So it's an important way to really open those doors, because otherwise sometimes they don't seek it out themselves, or they come in for, like Molly mentioned, like chronic stomach pain. It just doesn't make sense. Why this isn't making sense, and you ask the usual questions, and then you start digging a little deeper to find out, oh, this is actually all stress related, not necessarily anything else, but it takes a little while to get there, to ask the right questions, to get them to open up. And by having like regular appointments, sometimes there's a little bit better rapport of, somebody you saw when you're 8 years old and now you're 16 and haven't been there for a while, versus, oh yeah, you can go see Dr. Sam every year and chat about life and stuff. So
I think that relationship is so valuable, though, and to let kids know that that's really a safe space for them to talk to you. But that's a lot to go through. I mean, it's amazing, because when they're little, it's all about get their vaccines, and do you take Tylenol and ibuprofen and kind of the basics. But as they grow,
the growth chart, like, look how big you're getting.
As they grow, the problems grow, and the physician's visits grow too.
Yep, absolutely.
So the other aspects too of health, Molly, are really, we talked a little bit about sleep, but nutrition, physical activity. What are some things that you are coaching parents with that they need to be thinking about with their teens at that age?
Some of those things that you just mentioned, those are kind of the building blocks for everything else when we're talking about sleep and nutrition and, how diet, how are you feeding your body, and how are you taking care of yourself? That's something that we're talking to parents about, and it's not always even a lack of some of those things. Sometimes well-intended, but we are running, and we are going from activity to activity, and pretty soon we have a child or a teen who is, burnt out, not getting enough sleep, not, taking care of their body, just almost on the opposite end of it. And so talking to parents about that too, and it's always kind of finding that balance. And so just talking through those things with parents and reminding them of that.
Yeah, and probably really important to know what kind of kid you have. Yeah. Like some kids thrive in that, and some hate the go, and so, different strokes for kids. So.
Yes, definitely.
And then Tobin, how does that physical piece, like exercise and things like that, help to contribute to how they're feeling mentally? Like when they're coming in to see you, do you see some of that crossover?
Absolutely. I also serve as our building's 504 plan coordinator, and I would say mostly we see anxiety and depression as impairments, looking for 504 plans for accommodations in our building. And one of my questions that I ask is, what are you fueling your body with? Because we know if you're putting junk in your body, you're not going to feel good. And oftentimes that is an area that kids are kind of left at their own devices, and parents don't want to have that fight, and so they're eating chips and Monster and that's what they survive on. I work with so many students during the day who don't eat breakfast, don't eat lunch, and then will have just kind of a convenience store dinner and wonder why they don't feel well. So kind of going back to the basics, not only directly with our students, but also with parents, and talking through with what's being put in their body. Is it fresh fruits? Is it fresh vegetables? Are they getting enough protein? Are they getting enough carbs? So definitely see the American diet impacting also our mental health.
And I think part of that is that, kids are getting to finally experiment with what they want to choose, what they want to eat, and sometimes those aren't the best choices. But you brought up caffeine, and that's such a great point, because there's a lot of caffeine consumption. We don't always think of that as a substance to be worried about. But Molly, what are you seeing, in teens in the schools, and how does that caffeine consumption impact them?
Yeah, well, we are seeing an increased use in it, and it's readily available, so it's everywhere. And there's many different kinds of those energy drinks and things like that. And I will maybe let Dr. Sam give the exact milligram dosage. I want to say it's around 80 to 100 milligrams, maybe max day, and you get one energy drink that's over 200 milligrams or more of caffeine, and then you have the availability to get more than one of those a day. I mean, you can increase your level pretty quickly, and those can lead to physical, concerns, heart rate, palpitations, anxiety. All of those pieces come with that increased caffeine, and we see kids come into school experiencing that. And so trying to help educate them. And again, they are able to go and purchase those things, and so it's readily available. So,
Yeah, and I would, so I had to look it up actually. So 200 milligrams a day would be kind of the max recommended allowance. A cup of coffee is about 100 milligrams a day. 400 milligrams a day is when you start to see side effects, dependency, the withdrawal from when you're doing that much and you don't do it, like the withdrawal effects that go along with it, and everything Molly mentioned. I mean, caffeine is a stimulant. Stimulants are going to amplify things. So if you're sort of prone to like mood swings and you're doing a lot of caffeine, you can expect those ups and downs to be a lot lower. If you're prone to anxiety, you can imagine your anxiety level is just going to blow up if you're on a stimulant. Same with nicotine, same kind of thing with vaping. So if kids are on stimulants, we can expect amplification of other problems that might already be lying under the surface.
And that caffeine can be hidden sometimes in products we're using. I know you work a lot with athletes, and I'm surprised how much of it is in some of those add-in products. What do you see there?
Just a little bit of, to me, like I would say, call it lack of consumer awareness. They're not looking at the label that closely to realize like how much is in there. Maybe they just looked at the calories on the top or how much protein was in there, and it's got lots of protein, and they don't read the fine print of everything else, like how much is in there. So that, to me, it's more of just maybe either not realizing how much is a safe amount, or not realizing like what is actually in the products. So, and I would echo off Tobin too. I mean, a lot of the health problems I see are rooted in a lack of physical activity and a lack of healthy nutrition. And there's two movements in medicine nowadays: exercise is medicine, food is medicine, because we've largely forgotten some bread and butter topics of our health. Of we're not paying attention to our lifestyle, we're not exercising, we're eating junk, and we all wonder why we feel terrible all the time. So I spend a lot of times nowadays talking to kids about that, and it's a conversation for the whole family. Kids eat what their parents give them, at least when they're younger, and then they have that opportunity to explore when they're older. So to going back to the modeling behavior, like we talked about with cell phones, if parents are also modeling those sort of healthier lifestyles of getting regular physical activity and eating healthier, odds are better that their children will emulate and have similar patterns.
As we look at like substances that they come into contact with, substance abuse is something you hit on a little bit earlier that we need to be worried about. So Tobin, why are kids kind of more prone sometimes to that peer pressure going on at this age?
Over the years, I've seen, especially in our older teens, a lot of self-medication. Whether it's being vaping or vaping THC, marijuana use just in general, pills. We have students who don't feel good and they reach to substances just to feel better. And it goes back to what Dr. Sam said. You're not going to feel well when you aren't putting good things in your body. But I think of the influx and the epidemic of vaping. Not every teen vapes, but we do have the numbers to show that it is a problem. But a lot of the students that I work with behind closed doors will say that it helps them level out, that whether it's nicotine or a THC vape, it helps them get through the day. So looking at what are the root causes that you don't feel like you can get through the day, and what are other ways to handle that without, whether it be illegal substances or legal substances like caffeine. So just looking at all of the self-medication that happens, especially in our older teens.
Molly, what do you want to add to that, and how are you working to help to educate students about some of these dangers that are out there?
So we're always looking at that, and our counselor groups and our nurse groups are always working with students and helping where we can to identify a concern. in the last couple of years, we worked with the city of Sioux Falls and did a Break the Clouds campaign, which was vaping cessation. And so if a student were to be caught at school vaping or disclose that they were, that whole partnership was about getting kids connected to help. And so we had QR codes that kids could discreetly access and could get connected to help that way. So we are trying to look at it as more of less of a punitive piece and more of a supportive piece where we can help them through some of those concerns. Because we'd have kids coming to us and parents alike saying, hey, we started vaping and we can't quit and we want to. And so how do we best support students with that? And our nurses are there in the buildings to help identify other substance use or abuse, whether it's a student coming in, showing signs and symptoms or them self-disclosing, and then we're connecting them with a counselor, with a parent, with the help that they might need with that. So that's how we try to support in those situations.
And Dr. Sam, clinically, what are you seeing from your perspective? It feels like this has gotten more complicated. I know we say, like kids have changed and things, but this world has really transformed. It was really alcohol when I was a teenager, but now there's so many substances you have to watch out for. How do you help to work with your kids on that?
Yeah.
And when should you start?
Young.
Okay.
Yeah, young. I mean, it's the what kids get exposed to, I would say, is, again, the world hasn't changed, or the world, the kids are the same. It's the world that's changed, and the world exposes them to things far younger than when I was a kid back in the good old 80s. And so, yeah, so I would say definitely by the teenage years, those are conversations that need to be happening. But I would say even in the junior high years is probably about when parents really need to start educating them. I think a little bit is, parents know their kids, they know what they're exposed to. So it might vary a little bit about, like where their child goes to school, if they're homeschooled versus more of a traditional school where you can control more things. But it's just realizing, like, even if you don't want them to see things, they still see it and they still hear it. And so mom and dad need to be the place that they're actually learning about this stuff, not from other sources. So
yeah, great point. And Tobin, how can parents help to partner with professionals like you in the school to make sure they're helping their teens?
Absolutely. In the schools, as educators, counselors, nurses, administrators, we're there to help your students grow and develop in a healthy manner, and we're not an enemy of the child or of the family. So when we come to you and say, I think we might have an issue, or this was disclosed to us, taking it serious, going through the proper routes that we can refer and offer, whether it's mental health or substance use, going through the screenings, doing all of the referrals that come from a counseling staff in order to help support a child, because our hands are tied if the parent is not on board with helping our students.
Molly, what would you like to say? You've got a lot of partnerships out there too.
I do. Sioux Falls is wonderful as far as we are resource rich, and so it's always about connecting the families and the students with those resources, and that's really what we're here to do, and that's a lot of what we make sure our counselors, our nurses, our social workers, our staff are equipped with that knowledge about, hey, this student is struggling with this, here's this community resource, and we can get them connected. And so just letting parents know, reach out. We're here to help and support and connect you with the right people. We can't do everything in the confines of the school, but we can help get you connected to those who can. And so that would just be the piece that I would add to that.
Yeah, we've covered a wide variety of topics with teen health, so everything from caffeine to physical activity to mental health. So I just want to give you each a moment to just give our parents some wrap-up thoughts to leave them with. Dr. Sam, what would you like to share?
yeah, I think the biggest one, we talked about a little bit of the importance of those annual visits. And so if you're the parent of a child who hasn't been in for a couple of years because they weren't due for any shots and they're otherwise healthy, it's still important to bring them in. And there's a lot of stuff that we can chat about that might not necessarily be on the radar until we brought it up and we chatted about it, and then we're glad that we did. So even if you're not worried about their health, it's still good to bring them in and chat about things.
Very good. Molly?
Yeah, and I would say it's so important for kids to establish that habit, if that's so to speak, of connecting with a provider. So that what they do as a child and a teen, hopefully that will take them into adulthood where they feel comfortable going to a doctor when they have a concern.
Absolutely.
So that's another big part of it. It helps them in the moment, but it also sets them up long term for good health. And I would just say check in as a parent. Check in with your student, because the other thing is kids aren't the greatest at talking about things, and they may not come to you first. So checking in and making sure you're just maintaining a balance of those things we talked about. Good food, sleep, just taking care of yourself in general, and just checking in.
Yeah. Get to know them, get to know their friends, be in their business. That's
Yes.
kind of the best thing to do.
Yes.
Tobin?
Yeah, I think my final message would be similar to Molly's is, as a parent, be there as a support, be there as a safety net. Let your child make a mistake when they're not in danger physically or emotionally. Let them have problem-solving skills. Don't do everything for them. These are all things that are needed for a young adult that is going to turn into adult and need problem-solving skills and need coping strategies. So it all starts at home, and we need our parents and to continue to do everything they can at home to provide the guidance for our teens.
I really appreciate all of you being here today. Great advice for our parents. If you want more resources, you can access those on the Sioux Falls School District website under the Counseling tab to take a deeper dive into any of these topics, or on avera.org. Thank you for joining us.